What if I told you that a single Instagram story, just 5 seconds long, could destroy a 3-year relationship, expose the woman I thought I'd spend my life with, and ultimately lead to the best thing that ever happened to me? My name is Marcus, and this is the story of how I discovered my fiancée was cheating on me with her ex-boyfriend during her bachelorette party, and how that betrayal became the catalyst for the most incredible transformation of my life. But here's the twist. I'm actually grateful it happened. And by the end of this story, you'll understand why. 3 years ago, I met Sarah at a charity gala. I was 28, she was 26, and I'll be honest, I was immediately smitten. She had this magnetic personality, this way of lighting up a room that drew everyone to her. I'd just sold my third tech startup and was doing pretty well for myself, but Sarah wasn't impressed by the money. At least, that's what I thought at the time. She was working as a marketing coordinator at a small firm, living paycheck to paycheck. But she had dreams, big dreams. She wanted to start her own boutique marketing agency, travel the world, experience everything life had to offer. I admired her ambition, her fire. We moved in together after 8 months. That's when I started noticing things about her family situation. Her parents were struggling. Her dad had been laid off from his construction job. Her mom was working 2 part-time jobs just to keep their house. Sarah was sending them money every month, money she couldn't really afford to send. So I started helping, quietly. I paid off their mortgage, told Sarah I'd gotten them connected with a debt forgiveness program. I covered her little brother's college tuition, claimed he'd received a scholarship from a foundation I'd set up. When her dad needed surgery, I made sure their insurance, surprisingly, covered everything. Over 3 years, I estimate I spent close to $200,000 helping her family, and Sarah never knew it came from me. I didn't want her to feel obligated or change how she acted around me. I genuinely loved her, and I loved seeing her relief when her family's financial stress lifted. Last December, I proposed. We were in Cabo, a trip I'd planned for months. I'd had the ring custom designed, a 2-carat diamond with sapphires around it because blue was her favorite color. When I got down on one knee on the beach at sunset, she cried. We both cried. The wedding planning started immediately. Sarah threw herself into it with the same intensity she brought to everything else. She wanted everything perfect. The perfect venue, the perfect dress, the perfect flowers. The budget kept climbing, but I didn't care. I wanted her to have her dream wedding. But here's what I started noticing during the engagement. Sarah was different. More distant. She'd always been social, but now she was going out more, staying out later. Girls' nights became a weekly thing, sometimes twice a week. When I'd ask about her evening, she'd give vague answers. Oh, you know, just the usual drama with the girls. I trusted her completely, so I never pushed. I figured wedding stress was getting to her, that she needed time with her friends to decompress. The bachelor and bachelorette parties were planned for the same weekend in Vegas. I wasn't thrilled about Vegas. Seemed cliché. But Sarah was excited, and her maid of honor, Jessica, had already booked everything. My bachelor party was exactly what you'd expect. My college buddies, my business partner Mike, my brother. We did the whole thing. Dinner at a steakhouse, some gambling, saw a show. Nothing crazy. I'm not really the strip club type, and honestly, I just kept thinking about Sarah, about our wedding in 3 weeks, about starting our life together. Saturday night, while we were at a blackjack table, I decided to check Instagram. I don't usually post much, but I figured I'd share a story from the bachelor party. As I was posting, I scrolled through some stories from people I follow. That's when I saw Jessica's story. The video was only 5 seconds long. Jessica filming herself and 2 other bridesmaids at what looked like a rooftop bar, music pounding in the background. They were clearly having a great time, dancing, drinks in hand. But in the corner of the frame, just barely visible, I saw something that made my blood run cold. A man with his back to the camera, distinctive blonde hair, wearing a blue button-down shirt I recognized. His arm was around someone, and he was leaning in, clearly kissing them. The someone was Sarah, and the man was David, David was Sarah's ex-boyfriend from college. They dated for 2 years, and according to Sarah, it had been serious. First love serious. He'd broken up with her when he got a job at Goldman Sachs in New York. Said he wasn't ready for the commitment she wanted. That was 5 years ago, but Sarah had told me David was back in town, working at a regional bank downtown. She'd mentioned running into him a few months ago, said it was weird but fine seeing him again. What she didn't mention was that they'd apparently stayed in touch. I watched that Instagram story probably 50 times, zooming in, trying to convince myself I was wrong. But there was no mistaking it. That was definitely David, definitely Sarah, and they were definitely kissing. My hands were shaking. My brother noticed something was wrong and asked if I was okay, but I couldn't even form words. I excused myself, went to the bathroom, and called Sarah. Straight to voicemail. I tried 3 more times over the next hour. Nothing. I didn't sleep that night. I kept staring at the ceiling, playing out different scenarios in my head. Maybe it wasn't what it looked like. Maybe David had just been saying goodbye, a friendly kiss on the cheek that looked different from the angle. But deep down, I knew. You know when you know, right? I thought about all those late nights, all those vague explanations about girls' nights. I thought about how she'd been more distant, less affectionate. I thought about how she'd started working out more, buying new clothes, getting her nails done every week. The signs had been there. I'd just chosen not to see them. Sunday morning, my phone finally buzzed with a text from Sarah. Hey baby, having so much fun but miss you. Can't wait to see you tomorrow night. Love you. The casualness of it, the exclamation points, the love you, it all felt like a performance now. Sarah got back Sunday evening. I'd spent the entire day pacing my apartment, trying to figure out how to handle this. Do I confront her immediately? Do I wait? Do I hire a private investigator? When she walked through the door, she looked incredible. Tan, glowing, wearing a new dress I'd never seen. She dropped her bag and came over to kiss me, and for a moment, I almost convinced myself I'd imagined the whole thing. Almost. How was Vegas? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Amazing. The girls were crazy. We barely slept. Jessica documented everything. You should see her Instagram stories. We were such a mess. She was laughing, animated, telling me about the restaurants, the shows, the clubs they'd gone to. Not a single mention of David. Did you run into anyone you knew? I asked. For just a second, less than a second, her expression changed. A tiny flicker of something. Panic? Guilt? No. Why would you ask that? Just wondering. Vegas isn't that big. Nope. Just us girls all weekend. And that's when I knew for certain. Not just that she'd been with David, but that she could look me in the eye and lie about it. I didn't confront her that night. I needed time to think, to plan. Over the next week, I became someone I didn't recognize. I started paying attention to everything. Her phone habits, her schedule, her mood changes. I'd never been a jealous or suspicious person, but betrayal changes you. I noticed she was texting constantly, always angling her phone away from me. She started taking calls in the other room. She had a work dinner on Tuesday that ran until midnight. I could have confronted her. Maybe I should have. But part of me needed to know how deep this went, how long it had been going on. So I did something I'm not proud of. I hired a private investigator. Within 3 days, I had my answer. Photos of Sarah and David having lunch together. Photos of them going into his apartment building. Photos of them that made it clear this wasn't some spontaneous reunion in Vegas. This had been going on for months. The investigator estimated they'd been meeting regularly since February. 4 months. 4 months of lies, of me planning our wedding, while she was building a relationship with someone else. The final report included phone records. Apparently, Sarah had a second phone, one I'd never seen. The amount of communication between them was staggering. Hundreds of texts, hours of calls. I felt like I was reading about strangers. But the worst part wasn't the cheating itself. The worst part was what I discovered about why she was doing it. According to the investigator's report, David had been promoted to vice president at his bank. He'd bought a house in the hills, was driving a new BMW, taking expensive trips. From what the investigator could piece together from social media and public records, David was doing very well for himself. Better than Sarah thought I was doing. See, I'd been deliberately low-key about my wealth. I drove a nice but not flashy car, lived in a nice but not extravagant apartment, didn't throw money around. I'd wanted Sarah to love me for me, not for what I could provide. But David was flashy. David posted about his success, his expensive dinners, his weekend trips to Napa. And Sarah, apparently, was impressed. The investigator had even managed to recover some deleted text messages from Sarah's cloud backup. I shouldn't have read them, but I did. I love Marcus, but David, you've really got your life together now. I keep thinking about what we had, what we could have again. The wedding is in 2 weeks, but I can't stop thinking about you. Maybe I'm making a mistake. Reading those messages was like being punched in the stomach repeatedly. I had a choice to make. Confront Sarah, try to work it out, go through with the wedding and see if she'd choose me. Or end it. The Marcus from 6 months ago might have fought for her, might have tried to win her back, prove that I could give her everything David could and more. But this Marcus, the one who'd spent a week living with the knowledge of her betrayal, who'd read those text messages, who'd seen the photos, this Marcus was different. This Marcus realized something important. I didn't want someone who had to choose me. I wanted someone who couldn't imagine choosing anyone else. I called off the wedding on a Thursday morning, exactly 10 days before it was supposed to happen. I didn't make a big scene. I didn't scream or throw the evidence in her face. I simply told Sarah I knew about David, that I'd known for a week, and that I was done. The look on her face went through about 5 different emotions in 10 seconds. Shock, denial, panic, anger, and finally something that might have been relief. Marcus, I can explain. No, I said. You can't, and I don't want you to. The next month was rough. Canceling a wedding with 10 days' notice is expensive and complicated. Dealing with vendors, returning gifts, explaining to family and friends what happened, it was exhausting. But you know what I realized during that month? I felt lighter than I had in years. I'd been carrying the weight of a relationship that was already over. I just hadn't known it. All those months of Sarah being distant, of me trying harder, of sensing something was wrong but not knowing what, it was exhausting. Now I knew. And now it was over. I moved out of our shared apartment, found a new place downtown. I started working out again, reading again, spending time with friends I'd neglected during the relationship. And Sarah? Sarah moved in with David within 2 weeks of our breakup. I heard through mutual friends that she was posting constantly about their relationship, about how happy she was, about how David was the one who got away, who she'd found again. It stung, but not as much as I'd expected. Here's the thing about having your heart broken by someone you trusted completely. It forces you to rebuild yourself from the ground up. And when you're rebuilding, you get to decide what the new version looks like. I threw myself into work, launched 2 new companies. I started traveling, real traveling, not just business trips. I spent a month in Thailand, 2 weeks in Iceland, a week hiking through Patagonia. I started being more open about my success, not in a flashy way, but in a confident way. I bought the car I'd always wanted, moved into the penthouse I'd been looking at for years, started wearing better clothes. I wasn't trying to show off for anyone. I was just done hiding who I was. And Sarah's family? When they found out I'd been the anonymous benefactor all those years, her parents tried to reach out, tried to thank me, tried to apologize for their daughter. I told them no thanks necessary. Helping them had been my choice, and I didn't regret it. But that chapter of my life was closed. Fast forward to today, 18 months later. I'm genuinely happy. Happier than I was when I was planning a wedding, happier than I'd been in the last year of my relationship with Sarah. I'm dating someone new, Emma, a doctor I met at a charity event. She's brilliant, kind, and most importantly, she chose me. Not my money, not what I could do for her family, not because I was convenient or safe. She chose me. And Sarah? Last I heard, David got transferred to his bank's Chicago office. Sarah quit her job to move with him, but apparently the long-distance thing didn't work out when David decided Chicago was full of new opportunities. She's back in town now, back to working odd marketing jobs, back to sending money to her family that she can't afford to send. She tried to reach out a few months ago, a long text about how sorry she was, how she'd made a terrible mistake, how she hoped we could talk. I didn't respond, not because I'm angry, I'm not anymore, but because that chapter is closed, and I'm writing a much better story now. Sometimes, the worst thing that happens to you turns out to be the best thing that could have happened to you. Sometimes you need to lose everything you thought you wanted to realize what you actually need. If you're going through something similar, if someone you trusted has betrayed that trust, I want you to know it gets better. Not immediately, not easily, but it gets better. And sometimes, if you're really lucky, it gets better than you ever imagined it could be. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories about overcoming betrayal, finding yourself, and building the life you actually want. And in the comments, let me know, have you ever had a moment where the worst thing became the best thing? I read every comment, and I'd love to hear your story. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.